the librarian's forbidden book. In a tranquil corner of a thriving village, nestled beside a babbling brook and beneath the shade of ancient oak trees, stood the village library. It was a sturdy structure of cobblestone and dark oak, filled to its rafters with scrolls of history, tomes of lore, and crafting blueprints. Its keeper, a diligent villager named Elara, moved among the towering shelves with the practiced grace of a scholar. Her spectacles, perpetually perched on her nose, gleamed in the soft lantern light as she meticulously sorted new acquisitions and returned forgotten volumes to their rightful places. Elara found immense solace in the quiet order of her domain. Each book had its story, each scroll its purpose. Yet, one blustery autumn evening, while attempting to reshelve a collection of dusty, mostly ignored treatises on farming techniques, her hand brushed against a loose stone in the back wall of a seldom visited alcove. Curious, she pressed it, and with a soft click, a small, hidden compartment swung open. Inside, resting on a bed of ancient crumbling fabric, lay a single, unbound book. Its cover was plain, crafted from dark, unadorned leather that felt strangely cold to the touch. The pages, yellowed and brittle with age, seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. A faint, almost imperceptible hum resonated from it, a silent invitation to the curious. Elara, her heart quickening with a mixture of apprehension and excitement, carefully lifted the tome. It possessed an unexpected weight, as if filled with lead rather than parchment. She carried it to her desk, the only sound in the silent library being the rhythmic turning of its pages. The book held no title, no author, only dense, archaic script. As her eyes scanned the first few sentences, a chill crept up her spine, colder than any autumn breeze. The writing detailed a prophecy, not of glorious victories or heroic quests, but of a slow, insidious end to their world. It spoke of skies fading to an unnatural purple, of crops withering despite plentiful rain, and of hostile creatures growing bolder, their shadows stretching even in the brightest daylight. At first, Elara scoffed, a nervous chuckle escaping her lips. Just another fanciful tale, she thought, a relic of a bygone era's anxieties. But then, her gaze snagged on a particular passage, describing the once vibrant blue sky transforming into a sickly, bruised hue. Below the chilling text, a small, unnervingly blank space beckoned. An undeniable, almost magnetic pull urged her to act. With a trembling hand, she reached for a quill and a pot of fresh ink. The next morning, Elara woke with a peculiar sense of dread, the images of the book's prophecies still vivid in her mind. She ventured outside, expecting the usual gentle morning sun. Instead, she was met with an almost blinding azure, a sky so intensely blue it felt unnatural. Villagers gathered in the square, pointing upwards, their murmurs a mix of awe and bewilderment. They spoke of the most beautiful sunrise they had ever witnessed, a brilliant, vibrant canopy that seemed to chase away every shadow. Elara felt a cold dread seep into her bones. Last night, driven by a foolish, impulsive curiosity, she'd written in the blank space beneath the sky's ominous prophecy. The sky remains a vibrant blue, a comforting canopy. The world had listened. Her fear battled with a burgeoning sense of awe. Was it mere coincidence? She needed to know. The book had also predicted the eventual failure of all crops, their fields turning to dust. The village's wheat, while currently healthy, had seen better seasons. That evening, with a hand that shook less from fear and more from a desperate hope, she found the relevant passage. Below the description of withering fields, she penned, "The wheat grows tall and golden, yielding bountiful harvests." The change was instantaneous. By dawn, the fields surrounding the village, which had been merely adequate, now rippled with an impossibly lush golden tide. The wheat stalks stood taller than any villager, heavy with plump kernels. Children ran through them, laughing, their small hands brushing against the abundant bounty. A collective sigh of relief washed over the village. Villagers celebrated, unaware of the quiet, watchful figure in the library, whose heart now throbbed with the terrifying certainty of her power. Elara understood. She wasn't merely influencing reality, she was rewriting it. But the book, she soon discovered, was not so easily subdued. When she wrote, creepers flee at the sight of sunlight, seeking shelter in the deepest caves. The very next day, the village was indeed eerily quiet. Creepers, usually content to simply avoid spawning in direct light, now recoiled actively, hissing as if burned, melting into the shadows of caves and deep ravines. A collective cheer erupted from the villagers, who now felt an unprecedented sense of security. Yet, as Elara returned to the book, a new, unsettling page had materialized, filled with fresh, darker script. It described zombies, no longer fearing the sun, their tattered forms slumbering freely even at high noon. The book was adapting, finding new avenues for the world's end. It was not merely a passive repository of fate, but an active, malevolent force, seeking to fulfill its grim prophecies through any means necessary. The changes became too frequent, too profound. The sun, once merely vibrant, now beat down with an almost painful intensity, casting razor-sharp shadows. The unnaturally fertile ground, once a blessing, now choked smaller plants with rampant growth, turning paths into tangled thickets overnight. Villagers grew complacent, their once diligent work ethic softening into a lazy reliance on the world's newfound generosity. The delicate balance of their existence was being warped beyond recognition. Then came the more sinister alterations. The book spoke of blocks themselves becoming unstable. One morning, Elara watched in horror as a section of the library's cobblestone wall simply floated away, defying gravity before dissolving into motes of light. Water in the village well hardened into fragile ice in the middle of a sweltering day. Lava pools in distant caverns turned to bubbling crimson slush. Even the proud iron golems, protectors of the village, began to rust prematurely, their metal limbs sparking with erratic energy, their usually stoic faces contorted in what almost seemed like agony. Animals behaved erratically. Chickens soared to impossible heights, only to plummet awkwardly. Pigs, usually content to root in mud, began digging vast, aimless tunnels. The book seemed to mock her, filling previously blank pages with increasingly bizarre and terrifying new warnings that appeared around her alterations. Not instead of them. A new prophecy spoke of Endermen, usually content to stalk the dark, now actively stealing vital structural blocks from the village itself, leaving gaping holes in homes and defenses. Elara realized with sickening clarity that she wasn't stopping the end of the world. She was merely accelerating it, twisting it into a grotesque parody of what it once was. The world was becoming a chaotic mess of half-fulfilled prophecies and counter-prophecies, a victim of her well-intentioned but disastrous interference. Then, a final chilling page materialized. It declared not a violent cataclysm, but a silent, irreversible deletion of all blocks, all life. The very fabric of reality would simply unravel, like a thread pulled from a tapestry, leaving nothing behind but an empty void. Elara knew then that she could not control the book. It was an entity unto itself, a foundational text of their world, and her attempts to correct it only fueled its destructive nature. She couldn't destroy it with a pickaxe or fire. It altered reality to resist. But an ancient whisper among the villagers, a legend of a dimension where the rules of their world were inverted, where fire burned eternal and obsidian was the only barrier, echoed in her mind. the Nether. Perhaps there, amidst the raw, untamed chaos, its reality-bending powers could be nullified, or at the very least contained. With grim determination, Elara set about gathering obsidian, her hands shaking not from fear, but from a desperate, resolute purpose. The villagers, their faces etched with a blend of bewilderment and unsettling apathy from the constant, disorienting shifts in their world, watched her construct the shimmering purple portal. They said nothing, their eyes reflecting a strange, collective sense of distant unease, as if witnessing a dream they couldn't quite grasp. Stepping through the portal, Elara was immediately assaulted by the oppressive heat of the Nether, the sickening scent of sulfur, and the constant shriek of gas echoing across the crimson wastes. Piglins, their golden axes gleaming, eyed her with suspicious intensity. The book clutched tightly in her hands, pulsed with an unnerving dark energy, humming a low, resonant thrum against her chest. She ventured deeper, seeking a place of untamed power, a nexus of raw, foundational energy. She found it within the crumbling stones of a vast bastion remnant, a place where ancient piglin magic still lingered like a heavy fog. Here, she thought, this is where it ends. She approached a churning pool of lava, its surface roiling with liquid fire. With a surge of adrenaline, she prepared to cast the book into its depths. But as her fingers loosened, the lava below her rippled, transforming into a still, obsidian-hard surface. The book resisted, even here. She tried to throw it into a gaping void that plummeted to the bedrock below. The void shimmered, then solidified into an invisible, unbreakable barrier. The book could not be destroyed. It was part of the world, a conduit, perhaps even the source of its very structure. It was the blueprint. But as she stared at the ancient, unblemished script as of the very first page, the original prophecy, untouched by her frantic pen, a new thought, cold and clear, bloomed in her mind. It couldn't be destroyed, but perhaps it could be reset. She opened the book to its final blank page, the one that had held the terrifying prophecy of ultimate erasure. With a last trembling breath, she picked up her quill, dipping it in ink one final time, and then, with a resolute hand, she wrote, not a counter-prophecy, but a directive, a plea to the essence of the world itself. The cycle restarts. The world finds its own balance, free from interference. The memories of this book fade. As her quill lifted from the parchment, the book ignited with an internal, blinding light. The dark leather cover cracked, its pages curling and yellowing at an impossible speed. The ancient script dissolved into golden dust, which swirled around Elara before being carried away on a phantom nether wind, leaving nothing behind but the lingering scent of ozone and forgotten magic. Elara returned to her world. The air was crisp, the sky a natural, comforting blue. The wheat fields were healthy, their green stalks swaying gently, not unnaturally vibrant. Creepers now posed their usual, familiar threat, slinking through shadows, a necessary challenge. The villagers she passed in the square looked at her with a gentle, placid gaze, their faces devoid of the recent confusion or fear. There was no memory of the book, no recollection of the strange, unsettling shifts in reality. It was as if a long, troubling dream had simply ended, leaving only a vague sense of peace. Elara alone carried the weight of remembrance. She returned to her library, its cobblestone walls now whole, its scrolls neatly arranged. She moved with a newfound quietness, a solemn understanding of the delicate balance of their world, the inherent beauty in its natural progression, its challenges, and its unpredictable, untamed nature. She was no longer just a librarian. She was a knowing guardian, forever changed by the forbidden knowledge, ensuring no such hidden compartment, no such tempting secret, ever went unnoticed again. The memory of the book, and the power she had wielded was hers alone. A heavy, silent secret woven into the very fabric of her being.